Hello and welcome to CJC Adventures. I'm Carl and today I'm going to take another nostalgic trip as I'm in Tipton today. And we're going to take a look back in the past of things, what they used to be and what they are now. Basically what they look like then compared to what they look like now. A lot of things have changed. You'll be surprised at what hasn't changed. Things that are still there, things that are not there anymore, but where they used to be. And you might have some surprises and you probably think, well, I didn't know that used to be there, or I didn't even know that existed. So join me as we take a look at part 4 of Tipton, past and present. Now the first place we come to is Tipton Police Station, situated in Lower Church Lane. And look at that, for a decent, pretty good building, isn't it really? If you look at the bricks, blue brick to match the police colours, and of course lots of other things such as the cells underneath. You just see them off the picture there, and pretty much it would look like a building that you'd see every day on probably a museum or something like that, or a set in America or in this country. Let's have a look at what it looks like today. Well, sadly that building is no longer here. It's gone for quite a few years now, and this is what replaced it. A more newer building, blue brick, but no original blue brick, and I don't think this police station's open much. I don't think it's open at all to the public anymore. I think they just take calls here, and I'm not quite sure, to be honest. But this is what replaced the original Tipton police station. Now the next place we come to is the courthouse, situated opposite Tipton police station in Lower Church Lane. And if you look at it, it looks like a proper traditional pub with the proper traditional frontage and a good name to have just over the road from a police station. Basically a roadside pub, or just off a main road or a side street. Just one of those sort of pubs, and proper traditional looking place. But let's have a look, see what it looks like today. Well, this is what it looks like today, known as the old courthouse, whereas back in the day it was just the courthouse. Still in decent shape, probably best shape it's ever been in, but the only problem is, as you can see, it has a for sale sign attached. Like many pubs today, they do struggle, but I think this pub was a pretty well used pub, but for some reason nowadays it's now for sale. Unfortunate, but hopefully it has a future. Now the next place we come to in Lower Church Lane is St Martin's Church. And basically, if you look at it, it does look like a pepper box. Well, basically, they used to say that it looked like a pepper box and called it the Pepper Box Church. Now, St Martin's Church closed in around the 1980s. I would say around about the early 1980s. It was featured in television's Grand Designs, but for some reason they said that the church was in Dudley. It's not in Dudley, it's in Tipton, in Lower Church Lane. Let's go and see what it looks like today. Well, this is the view we get of the former St Martin's Church today. And even though it closed in around about the early 80s, as I mentioned, it pretty much does still look the same. However, that pepper box look still is pretty much similar to the way it used to be. It's just a bit lower. And someone actually lives here now. I don't know. And it was up for sale a few years ago, so those featured in Grand Designs, I'm not sure if they still live here. I don't know, to be fair. I don't actually see anyone around these parts. But this is the former St Martin's Pepper Box Church in Lower Church Lane. Now another traditional pub just seen in Lower Church Lane as well is the Britannia. Now the Britannia will be known by most as the Black Countryman or the Black Countryman if you're from around these parts. And traditional pub who pretty much locals got in there pretty much every day and every night, mainly a daytime pub. But let's go and see what it looks like today. Well, sadly, the Black Countryman, or Black Countryman, is no longer here. This is what's here now, houses. It's a sad sight to see sometimes here in Lower Church Lane, but this is where it was, and a nice little pub. I do remember it well, but sadly no longer here. Now the next location we come to is the Central School, situated in Alexander Road, Tipton. Now a traditional school where, pretty like sort of a well educated if you was to go here, and Alexander Road is known as one of Tipton's longest roads, and it was probably a good idea to place a school in the longest road in Tipton, or one of the longest roads in Tipton, and it celebrated its golden anniversary in 1977. Now obviously it had changes, and it was known as Alexandra High School, and if you went to it, it was known as just Alex. We're going to see what it looks like today. Let's go and take a look. Well, this is the school today. Looks pretty much the same. It's had a lot of add-ons over the years. It's also had some new windows added. But it does pretty much look the same as it used to. It's been done up quite a bit. It's obviously no longer known as a Central School or Alexandra High School or Alex. It's known as a Q3 Academy, which most schools are now academies. I don't know why today, but they are, and this is one of them. I always known it as Alex anyway. Now there is a tablet on the school that reads Tipton Urban District Council Education Committee, the Central School. This stone was laid by the councillor Thomas E. Salter on April 19th, 1926. So, proof that yes, it was called the Central School. We now come to Tipton Cemetery in Alexander Road, Tipton, just off Horsley Road. Now the cemetery itself is quite an old cemetery, and basically it's, well, sort of on a main road, and it opened in 1873. And take a look at that church in the background, or that chapel if you like, and that building on the left, and we're going to see what it looks like today. And this is what it looks like today. Still got the same gates, or what look like the same gates, and the pillars on each side, but the chapel or the church in the background and the building on the left has long gone. I don't think anybody really remembers those sorts of buildings and a church, but it was here, and this is where it was. This is the view that you get. Now I'm inside Tipton Cemetery at the moment, and I'd just like to show you this about George Kimberley of Tipton Green. And it says on the 27th of August 1914, Kimberley enlisted with the Canadian Expeditionary Force at, let's say, Valcartier near Quebec. He became Private 1257 on the 8th of Canadian Infantry Battalion. He was first wounded in St Julian with gunshot wounds in the head and left shoulder. On the 2nd of June 1916, Kimberley received the second and most horrific of his injuries. Germans had mounted an attack on Canadian trenches at Mount Sorrel, and Kimberley suffered serious head wounds from the flying shrapnel. He then returned to Tipton, and in January 1926, at the age of 38, Kimberley took his own life. And Kimberley is now remembered in Tipton Cemetery. I think that is really, if you think about what he went through, and to come back to Tipton, and he ended up taking his own life after going through all that war. It's awful, it's sad, and he's laid to rest just here. George Kimberley. It's sad. Late 90th. Winnipeg Rifles, who died January 16th, 1926, aged 39. He fought a good fight. There's someone else there as well, Samuel Kimberley, father, so to be, that would be his dad, yeah, and wife, and his wife as well, Catherine. It's sad, isn't it, really? So sad, but that's what war is. But, you know, it doesn't really stop the fact that you sort of, you know, gets to your mind maybe, but yeah. Rest in peace, George Kimberley. Now the next spot is the Shrubbery pub. Now this was situated near Alexander Road and Horsley Road. I did go in here a couple of times. It was a well-used pub, and pretty much when it was in its heyday, I think a lot of people went here, and a lot of locals used it for many years. So let's take a look at what it looks like today. Well, this is the pub today. It's now a one-stop shop. I think I've been in here once since it was a shop. So going in here as a pub, I went in twice, as a shop once. If you're a fan of Coronation Street, Beverly Collard, who played Liz McDonald, she actually opened this as a shop, and a lot of people call it Lizzie's after Liz McDonald. Of course, storylines with their husband Jim McDonald, if you like that sort of thing, which I do. We now stay around the Horsley Road, Tipton area, and take a look at this pub, the Rising Sun. Been in here a few times, quite a decent pub. It's had a few owners over the years, quite traditional, quite comfortable really. And let's go and take a look at what it looks like today, and hopefully we can just notice a few different things. And this is the Rising Sun pub. Pretty much looks the same, it's never looked better. On the left hand side the houses are now different. Now this was actually used in an episode of Love Your Garden with Alan Titchmarsh. They pretty much just filmed a few little scenes here and there. I don't think Alan Titchmarsh actually came here. It was just for someone whose garden they were pretty much reconstructing for them. But they did do a few sort of filming scenes here. And yeah, traditional decent pub, the Rising Sun. The old public offices, built in 1876 in Owen Street, Tipton. Pretty much a big story of a building, lots of stonework. Shall we go and see what it looks like today? And this is where those offices once stood. Now you would actually be forgiven for saying you'd be hard to find anybody who would remember those offices, but this is where they stood in Owen Street. This is now a car park. It has been since those buildings were out there, and it's never been anything else, just a car park of Owen Street, Tipton. And basically you really would find information about those offices somewhere. Now the next place we come to in Owen Street, Tipton, is the Britannia pub. Now the Britannia pub was situated in the middle of Owen Street and pretty much attached to all the shops that were there at the time. Now it was known locally as the Brit, and we're going to see what it looks like today. Now this was basically where the Britannia was, or the Brit. Basically when Owen Street was redeveloped, it was actually changed into a co-op which stood there for many years. Since then a row of new shops have been built, and it was pretty much just here. But it's changed so much you just can't really recognise it that good. But this is where the Britannia, or locally known as the Brit, a very nice pub, stood. Now the next pub we come to, a very popular pub by the name of the Black Cock. Now, it does date back quite a few years. A lot of people will still remember this pub, and the beer was very strong by all accounts. It was run by a man called Tommy Sutton, or locally known as Tommy Sutton. And if you look, Hanson's beers, yes, it literally was strong. And the pub itself had a big roaring fire in the middle. And even though it's before my time, I do feel like I've heard that many stories about the pub itself. I feel like I do know it, even though I don't remember it, if that makes sense. But this was the Black Cock, named after a fighting cock, as in a chicken. But, yes, and it did have big long chimneys on the top. And, yeah, it was a very well used pub in Owen Street. And this is where the pub once stood. As you can see, the building's long gone, it's a newer building, and it was actually a Mr. Freeze. I'm about 80% sure that it was called a Mr. Freeze freezer shop when it reopened with a new building, and then it went on. I think it was an estate agents for a while, and now it's Legend Sports Bar. But this was where the Black Cock pub used to be. The Regal Cinema, which started life as a market, or if you like, and this picture dates back to 1955. Now, this was situated right in the middle of Owen Street. You can actually see the church there in the background, and a lot of people will remember the Regal Cinema. It was a traditional cinema, not like today. Today you get like more than one screen, don't you? You get up to 10 or 15 screens. I believe this had just one or maybe two screens at the most. I would say about one, to be fair. But yeah, let's go and see what it looks like today. Now the Regal Cinema would have stood roughly about there. You notice those old buildings on the right. Those are still there at the time, along with the church. A lot has changed in this area, to be fair, but you can still pinpoint where it used to be. But that was where the Regal Cinema was, and you'd go there mainly on Saturdays or Sundays to see the latest film. The Miners' Arms, situated at the top of Owen Street, near the Fountain Pub, and a lot of people will remember it, but not remember it a lot, because I don't think it was a very well used pub by people who you talk to. It was used well, but mainly didn't have a lot of history attached to it. But if you ask anybody in Tipton who was around then, they will remember the Miners' Arms. Let's go and see what it looks like today. Well, this is where the Miners' Arms once stood. As you can see, it's totally unrecognisable. You can't find any remnants whatsoever that there was an actual pub here, but there was. And this is where the Miners' Arms once stood. It was, you know, as I mentioned, a traditional pub, but this road wasn't here at the time. Totally unrecognisable. Good old Miners' Arms. The Beehive pub, situated in Beehive Walk. Now, Beehive Walk, just off Elliott's Road. Traditional large pub, very well used. My granddad actually used to have very fond memories of going in this pub, and you know, he'd come off shift, he'd go in all the pubs, but he used to use this quite a lot. Right by the canal, and if it was today, to be known as a traditional canal side pub, an M&B pub, Mitch's and Butlers, and just off the bridge, and yeah, pretty much a traditional watering hole for the days of Tipton and right by the canal. Let's go and see what it looks like today. Well, sadly, this is the view we get today. It's not a bad view, but it's not as nice as the view for when the pub was here. It was where that house is there in the middle, and honestly, it would look better with a pub, wouldn't it? If you notice, that bridge, which was on the left, has gone. Part of the wall is still there, which is nice. But yeah, a lot has changed. I don't know why they knocked that pub down. I don't remember it, but by all accounts it was a good money spinning pub. St Paul's School, situated in Wood Street, Tipton. A very small school. You wouldn't actually believe that they would put a school there. My granddad actually went to, and he actually only lived over the road, so very convenient for him. Never had a day off in his life. And basically, he says how strict the teachers were here, which there was, wasn't there, in those days, in the 30s and whatnot. But this is St Paul's School. It's actually been moved just the other side of Tipton, where the old crossings used to be. It's a more newer traditional school now, as you can imagine. And this was St Paul's, and it's a community centre now. I mean, if you look at it, you can actually tell by looking at it, it wasn't a big area. You can actually see the other end, it's just there. But yeah, this was St Paul's. This is it now, community centre in Wood Street. Now the next place we come to is the Noah's Ark next to St Paul's School in Wood Street. Now this was a Hanson's pub. It's been quite a few things since, and it was run by the Cartwright family. Now the Cartwrights were all boxers mainly, and if you went in there and you asked them for a drink, they would usually take a drink for themselves out of your change, and you wouldn't question it. One reason, because you knew there was a boxer. So everybody did really. And we're going to go and see what it looks like today, the Noah's Ark. Let's go and see. Well, this is the Noah's Ark today. The pub you've just saw, the picture, was a different pub. And a lot of people think it's the same pub. It wasn't. That pub would, apparently, by all stories, there was a storm and a lamppost or telegraph pole smashed the pub up, blew down into it, and they rebuilt it. Exactly the same sort of style. It does look the same pub, but it's not. But this has been here for quite a few years, and it's still a traditional busy pub in Wood Street, Tipton. And basically the old pub used to have more than one room. This pub has more than one room, except for upstairs. It's all one room. So if you wanted to go in another room, you'd actually have to live here, and you'd have to go upstairs, if that makes sense. So this is the Noah's Ark. And that's it for today on CJC Adventures, part 4 of Tipton Past and Present. Hope you've enjoyed as much as I have. If you have, please give it a thumbs up, and please subscribe. Click on the subscribe icon, click on the bell, and you'll be notified when each video is uploaded. It's all free, it won't cost you a penny. And if you want to leave me a comment, please do so. I'll do my best to reply to every single one of them. Until next time, look after yourselves and each other, and goodbye for now.